Hey, mountain climbers. So, this interview is 5 months in the making. It's supposed to take place in December, but as you know, my sweet grandpa went to be with the Lord, and this guest had to go back to Uganda. You guessed it, it's Joy Puckett. So, Joy started coming to Rubyville Community Church about 3 years ago. And when she started coming, I noticed that she was sitting in the pew behind me by herself. And I went up to her and I said, this won't do. You're going to start sitting with me. And that was just the start of a beautiful friendship. So if you know Joy, you know that she's loyal, she's steady, and she's constant. I knew I could always depend on her. I could go to her for godly and sound advice and always just take it to heart. She gave me exactly what I needed to hear. And of course, I love her dry sense of humor, and her quick one liners never fail to make me laugh. But what I love about her story is that it shows that not all mountains are bad or traumatic. Some mountains can be good. But what makes them a mountain is that we have this decision, this opportunity, this choice that we have to make and discern if it lines up with the will and heart of God. And that can be agonizing. So when she started to pray and go back and forth and question whether Uganda was what God had for her, it was agonizing for her. And, to make, matters even more extreme, it was a dream that she had always wanted to do. And so, there was that aspect of it. And then you combine it with, is this the timing that I'm supposed to be doing this? And of course, she got her answer, and that was to go. So today we're going to hear from her, and she's going to tell us how God gave her the confirmation that she was supposed to go to this mission field. And so we're going to go to Uganda via Zoom. It's so cool that we can do that. And hear Joy share with us how God can take a mountain and turn it into ministry. Hey Joy, welcome to Mountain Climbers. I'm so excited to see you. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So we're talking to you from Uganda, which is so cool that we can do that.
Yeah.
What time is it there?
It just passed 7 p.m.
That is so crazy. It is 12:04 right now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's insane to think that there's that much of a time difference between us. But again, it's cool that we have this technology at our fingertips and can do this. So I know our RCC peeps are going to be so excited about this, and I can't wait for them to see this interview. And so we're gonna jump right into it. And
Okay.
our first question is, when did your interest in missions begin?
Okay. So I would say my interest in missions really began in the church where I grew up. We had a missions department there, and I want to almost say once every month, but that might be too frequently. We would have a missionary either from the US or from other countries come and discuss what they were doing and their ministries. They would have their little table set up with their props and things. And then we also had a youth ambassador program for a few of those years when I was younger. So we would meet back in the fellowship hall and talk about different countries, different just cultures, and we could even loan out books to read about different mission experiences that people had. So that was probably when my interest was piqued. And I don't know, I just thought the stories were really challenging and filled with faith, things like that. So it just started getting those wheels turning for me.
That's awesome. So, what church did you grow up in?
I grew up in Raritan, Nazarene, and that was just a couple miles from my house.
Okay.
So that was always nice too.
Okay. And you lived in the what district township? You went to Northwest. That was where you graduated from, right?
Yeah. I grew up 2 miles out of Raritan. So everyone here, especially, or even when I was at home, like, what town are you from? Like, not really from a town. I'm from a hill, Mount Joy Hill.
Yeah.
But yeah, just a few miles out of Verdon.
Okay, well that is so cool that your church had that program. I don't know of many churches that go to that extent. So that,
Right.
of course all churches, support missions and do things with missions, but to, have an ambassador program and all that, that's awesome. So of
Yeah.
course that was going to pique your interest. And did that interest shape your decision to get a degree in social work?
I would say to some capacity it was somewhat related. But social work I had kind of decided on in high school after doing a few presentations on topics like child abuse and child protection. So
Yeah.
that was when that interest really came about. But I think in a way they're connected with just my innate want to help people and to help people heal.
Yeah.
So those are connected in some ways. Yeah.
That is awesome. Okay, so in between becoming interested in missions and wanting to get a degree in social work, did you have
Mhm.
any mission experiences?
Yes. The first mission experience for me was through an organization called World Gospel Mission, and they're based out of Marion, Indiana. So there was a local
In
group, huh?
WGM, is that the acronym?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, all right.
They're pretty intense. They have a big base in Asbury community as well.
Yes, that's why I've heard of.
Yeah, I knew that's why you're like, what?
Yeah,
WGM?
yes.
So I went with them on a few trips to Arizona where they did a summer camp for different youth from the surrounding reservations.
Hmm.
So I was there one summer and then I went back the next summer. And that was my first experience with mission related activities. And it was really cool to get to see some of the same kids and build at least a semblance of a relationship because you're not there long term. And then I had traveled to Kenya that following year
Hmm.
with some of the same people I had traveled with to Arizona. So
Okay.
that was my first international missions experience. And it was just short, 8 or 9 days. And we got to travel around the country and see some really good ministries being run by national leaders
Hmm.
and other missionaries from different countries. So that was kind of a good perspective building trip.
Okay, that's awesome. So we mentioned Asbury. We're
Mm-hmm.
Asbury peeps and graduated. I know, go Asbury. So you graduated from Asbury with a master's in social work, and so after graduating with that, you worked several years as a clinical therapist. What made you decide to engage in another international experience?
The quick answer would probably be I just wanted to,
Mm-hmm.
but
But what's
the
long it?
more in the more in depth answer
Mm-hmm.
would be um, it always just kind of, I mean, it doesn't leave you. And in my naive mind, I feel like this is everyone's experience, which I know it's not, because I know of people who've been on trips and they've traveled internationally and done some mission work, and they're kind of thinking, okay, that was it. I'm good. I'm done.
Yeah,
But for me, it just was still there,
it is.
kind of just a part of who I was.
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking for a different kind of experience than what I'd had before.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like I mentioned, the trips beforehand were pretty short term.
Yeah.
And I had traveled to Uganda in 2011 before I did my master's. No, that was Kenya. I traveled to Uganda time these days during Corona. I traveled to Uganda in
All like together.
2016. I know. Crazy.
Mhm.
Because I had wanted to see what it would be like to be there for a little bit of a longer term.
Mhm.
Because short-term trips are good in certain ways,
Yeah.
but I wanted to experience maybe a little bit more relationship building to really get to know the people you were with. So I had went for about 4 months in 2016 just to get a little bit more of a taste of what it's like to actually live for a little while in a
Mhm.
culture and engage with the people there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's cool. Um. So you mentioned, you went to Uganda in 2016. So, after visiting Uganda in 2016, what kept you from immediately going back?
I had taken the opportunity before my trip in 2016 to move from Kentucky, where I was working after graduating from Asbury, to move back to Ohio. So when I got back from Uganda that first time, I settled in Ohio because my niece had just been born not too long before.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be a part of her life while she was growing up. And I think I was pretty successful because I remember the days I'd go over there and she'd run to you from the door and be like, oh, I miss you again. And it would make your heart light up. So that was always nice. And she's my buddy. So I wanted that to be kind of a chapter in my life where I was near her and got to see her grow up and just to be around family in more of a capacity than I was when I was living in Kentucky.
Yeah, that makes sense, definitely. But that longing for missions in Uganda did not go away. And you started thinking, I'm going to seriously consider and pray about going back to Uganda. And to you, what had to happen to give you the green light? Say, okay, I'm going. What was it about the organization that you wanted to go and work with that captured your heart?
Okay. Like I said before, I really wanted a different experience that first trip to Uganda. This second trip, I still wanted a different experience. So I knew that would mean going for a longer stint of time again.
Yeah.
And I also wanted it to be a little more focused on my educational background and what I had really put my heart and soul into with counseling and therapy and social work. So I was really trying to find an organization where that fit. And I've always been jealous, I've said, of people in the educational sector or medical, because I'm always like, there's so many opportunities for them to go internationally.
Definitely.
But with social work, it's a little bit more, it's a little smaller.
Yeah.
So I had actually met one of the co-founders of Tudapona during my trip in 2016 at a Bible study, and we had consulted with him on a case we were dealing with a different organization. So I knew him, and I thought, hey, I'm gonna give Carl an email and see if he could maybe connect me with someone who knows of an experience or an opportunity. So I sent him an email, and he said, well, Tudapona takes volunteers sometimes, so you should check into that and check out our application. And what was funny is right when I got that email, I just burst into tears. I don't really have a lot of insight as to why, except
and
I think it was just
crier, so that it just must have really excited you.
I cry at movies a lot and in church, but outside of that, not so much. But yeah, it was just, I don't know if it was a relief or just kind of a pretty clear, hey, this could be something. So you would think that I jumped on it right then, but I didn't.
Yeah, I know.
It's not how I operate. So it was probably a whole year from when he sent me the application before I actually filled it out. And within that time, I would love to say that I was super spiritual about it and prayed a ton and read all these verses and got this amazing lightning bolt strike of insight from God, but that's not really what happened.
Yeah.
It was kind of just a year of me doing life the way I usually do it and just really trying to trust that what was in my heart and kind of pushing me towards this experience was from God. And I just had to, a lot of my faith moves are that. They're movement on faith and not some concrete answer that I've gotten from God. So yeah, I don't even know if I answered your question. Did I answer your question?
No, you answered it good because sometimes you don't get a concrete answer. What you have to go on is the doors just continually open, and it sounds like that's what happened for you. Not one time did the door shut. It just opened and opened and opened. And
the funny thing about Uganda, the first time I went, not to jump backwards, but that was kind of a shut door moment because I had originally applied to go to Honduras for that 4-month stint.
Yeah.
And they got back with me and said, the field doesn't have capacity for someone to come right now, but our Uganda team would accept your application. So I thought, I've been to Eastern Africa before. Is that something I wanted to do again? So in my office at work, I got down on the floor and was going to pray. So it was probably 10 seconds into the prayer. I thought, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Like, why am I struggling with this again just because the location has shifted?
Yeah.
My desire to go hasn't shifted. The
Yeah.
call that I feel like God's put on my life hasn't shifted. So I thought, God, this is a trust moment. If you shut the door, then you've shut the door. So it was funny to me now to look back on it, to think me coming to Uganda for that short time, met Carl, he linked me up with Tudapona, and here we are.
I mean, God cares about the little details. I mean, I just said yesterday, like, he's the best puzzle maker. You don't really always understand, like, what the puzzle pieces are going to make, what picture they're going to form. And I'm sure, like, when you said, okay, God, I'm going to trust you. I'll go to Uganda. You never thought where that would take you.
Right.
So
yeah, I never thought I would be back here for a year doing what I'm doing now with this organization.
Yeah, that is so amazing. So, of course, you finally made the decision to go. And when you did, what feelings and emotions were you feeling? I mean, you just made a big life-altering decision. What were you feeling?
I'm not very self-aware with my emotions. You know me personally, so you know that's true. But
I know that
course,
you need time to process, and you've had time to process. So now looking back,
okay. All right. Yes, I will answer your question, Whitney.
Okay.
I felt, looking back on it now, I could see that I was completely nervous, more so, telling family, telling friends, my clients that I've been working with for almost 3 years, some of them for almost 2 years. That was difficult. And then telling my supervisors at work, I don't like to disappoint people. So I felt like telling them that I had decided to take this step could be disappointing in a way. And it was really fear-based. So a lot of nervousness, unprepared, unqualified, and just kind of overwhelmed, because when you do a complete life move at the age that I am, you have to change a lot of details. You have to do a lot of things. So it can be really overwhelming. So those are a few of the emotions.
Yeah.
And then preparing would just be trying to be more self-aware of what I was feeling and trying to face that, and turning to God. I really leaned heavily on my church family during that time. So really gleaning a lot from Pastor Cal and Brian's sermons and the songs. It was kind of like that was my sanctuary of being able to go to church and to get away from it all, because my job was also very stressful at the time and overwhelming in itself. And then there was actually some podcasts from a missionary here in Uganda currently.
Awesome.
He had put online and was talking a lot about the same topics, emotions before coming. And I related to a lot of things he was saying. So those were really nice to kind of help me prepare emotionally.
So we talked about how you prepared emotionally. How did you prepare practically? How did you get your affairs in order? I mean, I can't imagine how overwhelming that was.
It's a whirlwind, and there's so many things you don't think of until the moment you need to think of them.
Yeah.
Because, it means moving out of your apartment, putting your stuff in storage, wrapping everything up with your job, which was a huge piece of what I had to do. Going to the bank, putting people on your accounts because you'll no longer have an American number.
Yeah.
Changing your numbers, I can't even think of everything anymore because I don't remember that time.
I'm sure it was a whirlwind. I was overwhelmed for you. Like, I just can't imagine figuring all that out. I remember, like, us talking, and you're like, I gotta do this. I gotta make sure, this is taken care of. So anyway, I'm sure you kind of blocked all that out because, they're here. It all fell into place. And so, but what day did you leave in July? Because you left in July, and was it difficult to go?
I left on the 23rd, and it was difficult to go. Avery, my niece, had come to visit, I think, the day before, and that was the worst goodbye for me the last time I had traveled.
Yeah.
So this time, of course, it was still difficult. For some reason, this time leaving wasn't as bad as the first, and I don't know why, except maybe I had just done this before.
Yeah.
So I thought, I know what I'm prepared for. I know that we can still talk over FaceTime, and she's at an age where I can talk, and my family, they know the plan.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that gave me some ease, but it was difficult, but I don't think I had as much sadness going into it. Yeah,
We're
this time, which was nice.
Did you have more excitement?
I wouldn't even say more excitement. I think it was just more kind of settled. Like, okay, we have finally decided. Here
Yeah,
we go.
that's great. And I think, that's how you know you made the right decision, because you have peace. And that's how
Yeah.
you can, you can trust it. And so that's awesome. So what is it like working for this organization, and what are your duties?
Tutapona is awesome. I didn't mention one of the reasons I did choose to come here with this organization is I really like the way that they run their programming. A lot of agencies, especially in the mental health sector, try and bring people in maybe with a Western perspective to, in effect, save people and let me help these poor innocent souls. And Tutapona takes more of a realistic look at what the world is right now.
Yeah.
So one thing I love about the organization is they equip local leaders and local counselors to do the real work with clients. And the main base of their clients is the refugee population, which Uganda houses it fluctuates 1.3, 1.4 million refugees in this country. And this country is the size of Oregon. So it's not a big country.
Yeah.
But it's kind of this hub surrounded by all these different countries that have dealt with conflict maybe in the past or currently. So I really loved that Tutapona is a faith-based organization. They really have good quality programs that just are delivered by good people who have been through life challenges themselves, and they're local people. So I was like, woo, I definitely loved that aspect of it. But I enjoy working with them. They have a great culture. They have great people that facilitate their programs. We do group-based programs in the communities, so in the settlements, and we have an adult program and a children's program. So one of my responsibilities and roles is to help monitor how those programs are running, help support the staff through maybe one-on-one sessions or trainings. So I'll work closely with the clinical specialist to do quarterly trainings. So we'll train on different mental health topics, things like that. And then my role has kind of evolved as I've been here, because when I first came, it was like, okay, Joy, we've had volunteers in the past, you can take on their responsibilities. And that was fine. And it kept me busy.
Yeah.
But through some shifts, through funding changes, it's been quite a long process. And I've been here for what now, only 9 months?
Yeah.
And I've seen a ton of changes happen just because of this is how NGOs work.
Yeah.
So I've kind of stepped into some more administration roles, and I've taken on some duties related to reporting, proposal writing for finding funders and projects so we can keep people working. And
so
we've had
Whitney. I'm so excited.
No, Whitney, I'm not writing books or cool things. No, you don't understand how long it takes me to slave over my paragraph of a proposal. I wish I had your skill to just be like, 10,000 words, whatever.
I'm sure it's amazing.
We'll go with that. That works. So yeah, that was one responsibility of mine. And then just kind of whatever they say, hey, Joy, can you help with this? Another thing I do is a lot of meetings, many meetings with many people about different mental health policies. We go to the UNHCR meetings, and we're meeting with some pretty powerful people. And just to be in the room and listen to some of the conversations that they're having about mental health, because Uganda is pretty behind when it comes to even the terminology used to describe mental health.
Yeah.
So they're catching up, which is really fun. They have a mental health act that was just put through recently, and that's taken 12 years from development stage. So yeah.
Awesome.
But yeah, they're coming leaps and bounds. So I'm really excited for what that's going to mean for people here in the future.
Yeah. Well, that's cool, because, what you're saying is just showing others that when it comes to missions, you have to be flexible. That's the name of the game. You have to go where you're needed and do what you have to do in the moment. And so I think that's good because some people might have rose-colored glasses with missions and like, oh,
Yeah.
get to help and feel fulfilled, and it's just going to be amazing. I'm going to take pictures with a bunch of kids, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it is some of that, but you
Yeah.
still have to be flexible and be willing to do the grunt work. And so I think that's really cool that you've brought that to light. And so how is it interacting with the people of Uganda?
In many ways, it's just like interacting with people anywhere. You're going to have people that you connect with more than others.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some good people here. Obviously, there's not great people here too. But yeah, I mean, it's very similar. I will say my first experience with Uganda, I was just kind of blown away by people's ability to move past adversity. Because in the US, we have people who went through terrible tragedies and
Yeah.
adversity and daily life that's super stressful. And I'm not trying to compare those.
Yeah.
I know in that experience, getting to sit down with people who had been through an enormous amount of atrocity that I would never imagine.
Yeah.
And the fact that they could still sit there with such a smile on their face and you knew it was genuine,
Mm-hmm.
that was really impressive to me. So you'll meet a lot of people like that here as well. But overall, it's pretty similar, because I liked the point you made about rose-colored glasses.
Yeah.
Some people think they'll come in and they'll be everyone's friend and
Yes.
everyone will like me.
Yeah.
But it is really just like living life,
Yeah.
just somewhere else where things are a little bit different.
That's awesome. Now, is Uganda's official language English?
It is, yeah.
Good. Okay, so there hasn't been much of a language barrier.
Um, it doesn't help that I have a Southern accent, even though we don't like to admit that we do.
Yeah.
But when you're trying to get a ride on a boda and you say, "I want to go down the street. Are there a lot of cars today?"
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Like, we're both speaking English, but the dialect or the accent can be very different.
Yeah.
For example, one of the malls closest to here is Acacia Mall. So I say Acacia, but a Ugandan boda driver would say Acacia. So if I say Acacia, they have no idea what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of try your best at a Ugandan accent, and you sound super silly because they're still like, you're not making sense.
One of those like you say potato, I say potato instances. So that's funny. But what are the biggest cultural differences between Uganda and the U.S. that you've kind of like, whoa, like this is certainly different, not used to this?
Right. Uganda has a certain smell. I'll say that. It's so funny how many people I've heard say that when they get off the plane at Entebbe Airport. They're like, "Oh, Uganda has a certain kind of smell."
Yeah.
And I guess America does too. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I would say one of the biggest differences would be how this culture is more a collectivist culture as opposed to the individualistic type of culture that we have in the US.
Okay.
So, I mean, you'll have people with really big families, and it's more of just even not that family, but it's the whole community as a unit. And I mean, I know we have communities in the US that can be pretty close knit, but it's just not to this level.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't even have the capacity to understand how connected neighbors are to neighbors.
Aww.
So that is really different. And there are people out all the time at all hours, not right now because it's COVID.
Yeah.
But that was one of the major differences. Of course, living near Raritan, I mean, you've got a neighbor across the street, but that's it. And here, there are always people walking. There's always people moving, chatting. It's pretty constant.
Yeah.
And the relationships they have are very deep. For example, if I would walk up to you on the street in the US, if I didn't know you, I would maybe look at you and just be like, hey, and then walk on. Here, if I walk into a shop and I want to say buy a thing of milk, I have to engage with you first. Like I can't just say, "Hey, I need milk." I would have to say, "Hello, Sybil, how are you? How's your family? How was your night?" It's this kind of long greeting exchange.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because that's just cultural. It's just what you do to be polite.
Yeah.
And if I came in and said, "Hey, I need milk," that would be kind of rude. So you got to go through the pleasantries.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's cool. I like that. I like how they just kind of slow life down and
Yeah.
take it day by day, and not as rushed as our culture is here. So that's really cool.
Right. That's not always so easy for me though, because I'm someone who's even on the phone. I'll call one of our coordinators and I'll say, "Hey," and I want to just quickly jump to my question, but I
Yeah,
have to. Hello. How are you? How are you doing? Yeah, it's a good lesson for me in patience.
I could see that though. Yeah, I definitely could see that. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I would be the same way. Like, you know, like this, but like, you're talking like, yeah, how are you doing? But your face is like,
Yeah.
anyway, that's funny. So that's really cool. I think I know the answer to this next question, but I'm still gonna ask it.
Okay.
You're glad you made this decision, right?
Yeah. I was gonna say no just to be facetious, but yes, I
Yeah.
am glad. Um, yeah, I don't even know how to follow that up. Yes, I am glad.
Yes. Sometimes it's just that simple. Yes, don't have the words to say anything else except yes. So that is great. So we mentioned the pandemic. We're in a worldwide pandemic. So my first question is, how did you make the decision to stay in Uganda and not come back home?
That is a good question. When everything kind of started,
Mhm.
to be honest, that thought never even came in my mind.
Mhm.
Maybe because here the disease was really downplayed and it
Okay,
was kind of, oh, that's a Western problem. That's the way it was presented
gotcha.
on media. But I'm also someone who, when I start something, I finish it.
Yeah.
So the thought of leaving didn't come into my mind until my supervisor asked me and said, "Hey, if you want to consider, some organizations are sending their expat community members home." He's like, "Do you want to stay or you want to go?" And it was kind of a no-brainer. I
Yeah.
just thought, "Yeah, I'm going to stay. Like, I
Yeah.
haven't finished my time. I'm going to stay. I'm going to do my job. That's what I do." So
Yeah.
that was more so the reason. And then it didn't take long for the airports to be shut down here.
Yeah.
And it was a really interesting time, as anywhere, of kind of this panic of the president has said that if you're out of the country right now, you'll be out for an indefinite amount of time. And that word indefinite, people struggle with because usually we think indefinite means forever,
Yeah.
but you just don't know. So some people panic bought these tickets on these super expensive flights to
Uh,
get out and go back to wherever their country of origin was. But yeah, I just kind of had to talk to myself and really realize that I'm just as
yeah.
safe here as I would be at home, and I can still connect the same and do my job.
Yeah, that makes sense. So since it wasn't even on your radar to go home, when your supervisor asked you if you wanted to, did it kind of like, whoa, where did this come from? Did it kind of take you back?
It did take me back, actually, to hear that so many people were leaving.
Yeah.
And I think that contributed to some of the panic within the people I knew
Mhm.
who lived in US or London or Germany. So I thought, oh, yeah, I hadn't considered that, but no, I'm staying.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's great. I'm sure they were relieved that you were staying and they didn't, have to figure out like
Yeah,
how are
I
we
think
gonna,
so.
yeah, like how what are we gonna do with these, these duties that she's leaving behind? How are we gonna make ends meet? So I'm sure they were so grateful that you stayed. And so how has life with, and I hope I don't butcher this name, Tudapona, is that how you pronounce
Mhm.
it? How has
Yeah,
life with their ministry changed during the stay-at-home order?
this is actually a pretty exciting time for Tutupona.
Okay.
And Tutupona means we will be healed. It's a Swahili word.
Okay.
So that's another thing I really liked about
That's awesome. I
Tutupona is
love that.
their name. But during COVID, a lot of our work from the Kampala office we can do from home,
Hmm.
but our field staff, we have a field office in the north
Hmm.
and we have a field office in the southwest of Uganda.
Yeah.
So those staff members who are doing community-based work, groups of 30, 20, 25 to 30 people in the community in the refugee settlements, obviously had to stop
Yeah.
because you can't bring people together during this time.
Yes.
So we pretty quickly had to create this policy and procedures to still give mental health treatment, but to do more phone-based therapy.
Okay.
So we kind of quickly came together, wrote this plan, and got it out to our staff, and they were on board with it. And we really wanted to keep track of the clients we were already seeing in person, because
Yeah.
we don't just want to drop someone who's struggling with their
Yeah.
mental health when, of course, a national or global pandemic is happening.
Yeah.
So they started doing a lot of phone-based sessions. And then our country director had an idea to take our children's program to the radio. So what we started developing is we took our children's group program and kind of altered it so it would work for radio sessions.
Yeah.
And we got those scripts, we added some sound effects, got a local Ugandan to read the script, so children maybe who are from Acholi or from up north or the Southwest could understand her accent instead of mine, which we've established is not great. So we have been doing radio programs it's gone out in some of the settlements up north, and then also in some of the host community up north. So that's really cool to reach so many homes
Awesome.
at once, with some tools to help kids kind of de-stress and their families as well. And then the last thing, like I said, it's been exciting.
Yeah.
We have developed a online certificate program for professionals who want to upskill in the topic of trauma and adversity. So we've been working like fiends to try and get this online program up and ready to go, because this is the perfect time for people to take advantage of that when they have some extra time at home. So yeah, that's my very long-winded explanation of how Tutapuna is done with COVID. I think I've been more busy in the past 2 months than the entire time I've been here combined.
That's so awesome that all these like new things are being implemented. And there's been a lot of hard times and difficulties during this pandemic, but good things have come from it. And God's brought beauty from ashes despite these difficult times, and can definitely tell that with Tutapona Ministries. And so that's really cool. But when do you anticipate your doors opening back up?
That is up in the air. We were hoping this past week we were going to get transportation back, because we've been on a pretty strict lockdown here. We have a curfew at 7 p.m. Bodas and deliveries have to stop by 5. No public transportation, no private transportation. And that's been really difficult on people here in the city and also in the village, because people can't get to work. People can't congregate and actually do a lot of their market jobs or selling and buying. So it's been a really intense time for the people of Uganda when it comes to being able to feed their families. So we were really hoping this past week it was going to open up, but the president extended for 2 more weeks.
Gotcha.
So I don't know, especially when it comes to the airport.
Yeah.
I think the first thing obviously is going to be a progression.
Yeah.
But we're hoping we get a little bit of transportation back soon so people can start to make some of those daily wages. Yeah. And then eventually we'll get to the airports being open.
Yeah. That makes sense. I think it's a waiting game for everyone around the whole world now. And no one knows exactly when everything's going to open back up. It will. Things will get better. It's just you don't know when yet. And so I know you don't like this question.
I know which one you're going to ask.
I know what I want to ask, but it's expected. Everyone's going to want to know. And so I have to ask it. Do you think you'll stay in Uganda when your year's up?
The answer is likely yes.
Okay.
For a time frame, I do not know. The reason being, like I mentioned before, because of shifting in funding, I'm filling a role right now that I couldn't morally leave and just say, peace out, headed back home.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be good for the organization. It just wouldn't be fair.
Yeah.
So I definitely want to support Tutapona until they find someone who can be here a little more long-term in that role.
Yeah, it's very
And I know they have some people that they're trying to consider, and obviously this time has set that back as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've had some discussions about trying to stay on a little longer just to help them get to that point.
Yeah, makes sense.
I'm enjoying the work that I'm doing too, so that's helpful.
Yeah, that makes all the difference. Now, will you come home for a little break in the summer, or will you just stay the extended time and come home when you're completely done?
That's a good question. I would like to come home.
Hmm.
My mom would rather me not come home, which sounds really mean, but it stresses her out
Mm,
intensely anytime I'm flying
that
home.
makes sense.
To me, that's not a big deal. It's not great to travel because
Yeah,
it's at least 2 8-hour flights, and whoever knows how long your layovers are.
yeah,
It's honestly not that big of a deal to me, but to her it is.
yeah,
So we'll probably fight about that a little bit
yeah.
and see
We'll
what
see who
conclusion.
wins on that.
Yeah, we're
So,
both pretty stubborn.
not you, Joy. You are not stubborn.
Yeah,
um, well, I know I would love to see you, um, in the summer. So that's my vote. I I want to see you in the summer. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll be praying for you to make that decision. And I know like safety, God's will, so many factors are going to go
right.
into that decision. So you'll definitely have to keep us updated. And the question I want to end with for this interview is, what advice do you have for people who are in the midst of making a big life altering decision? How do they pray? And what things do they take into consideration to say, okay, I'm ready to take a big step like this?
Probably my advice is not super philosophical or
Mhm.
smart, I'll even say, but I would push people to basically just do it.
Mhm.
Um, I have heard countless stories because I ask people, anyone who has mission experiences or they've thought about it. And I have people approach me all the time when they hear that I've done anything mission related. And
Yeah.
they say, oh, I always wanted to do that,
Yeah.
but I was too afraid or I didn't take that step. And that has really driven into my head and my heart that you can't let fear kind of keep
Mhm.
you from even taking a step. And I think sometimes we get too bogged down with the idea that what if it's not in God's will?
Yeah.
And that's a good question to ask.
Mhm.
But I kind of have matured in my way of thinking about decisions.
Mhm.
And, if you're doing your best to serve God and you believe Him to be the God that He is, how can you not trust that if you take a step that He thinks, oh, that's probably not a good idea, He'll speak to you about it, He'll close the door.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's this linear, oh, I have to walk on this very strict path or I've messed it up.
Yeah.
There's this really good meme that I like, which you've probably seen, where it's like, you don't have that much power to mess up God's
Yeah.
plan for your life.
I love that meme.
I I like that because I have a lot of anxiety about, is this God's will? Is this God's will?
Yeah.
But when you think about it in that way, it takes a lot of that pressure off. And
Yes.
just take a step. Take a step out of your comfort zone and He'll help you through it. You'll learn a lot about yourself and about God through it. And
Yeah.
if it's not right, He'll kind of guide you. I mean, that's why He's a shepherd, right?
Yeah.
That's what He does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. That is so wise. There's a lot of people that need to hear that because I myself can focus too much on, is this the right decision? Am I going to throw my whole life off course if I make this decision, and I'll never get to this point, or this point that God had planned for me? And like you said, that's not the God we serve. That's not how He works. He will take care of us, and He works all things good um,
Right.
for us. And so I just love that we're ending on this note, because it's so true what you just said, and it's going to help a lot of people just to kind of release that burden, and
Yeah.
and take that pressure off themselves, that God's got them. So thank you so much for
You're
sharing
welcome.
your heart with us, telling your story. Like I said, I know it's going to help a lot of people process big decisions that they're, in the midst of making. And what I love about your story is that it shows that sometimes a mountain's not bad or traumatic. It can be good. But what makes it
Yeah.
a mountain is that you are trying to discern, you know, and make a decision, a choice, or figure out, is this an open door or not? And so that can cause so much anxiety. And so I love that you've shed light on a totally different mountain that I don't think we've covered on Mountain Climbers. So you have truly showed in this episode that when your strength comes from the right source,